Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. A Freilichen Sukkos to everyone. Chag Kosher v'Sameach. I'm recording this share inside my Sukkah, and it's a pleasure to be teaching Hilchos Sukkah from inside the Sukkah. So, welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav, and we'll be learning today Mirz Hashem Daf Kuf Yud Amid Beis. However, we pick up on Kuf Yud Amid Aleph Siman Tafresh Mem Gimel, where we are continuing to learn the halachos of making the bracha of Leishev Basukkah, the proper order to make the brachos when you come into the sukkah. So if you remember, in the beginning of Siman Tafresh Mem Gimel in Sif Aleph, we learned that when you make Kiddush in the sukkah, the order of the brachos is Bari Pri Hagafen. You make the Bari Pri Hagafen first because you need the yayin for the Kiddush, and the point of Kiddush is you're making Kiddush Bekachin al Hayayin. So, and also Tadir V'She'enai Tadir Tadir Kaidim, and certainly in the arena of Tadir V'She'enai Tadir, the Bari Pri Hagafen wins out. So the first bracha that we make is the Bari Pri Hagafen. Then we move on to Kiddush, because before we could make a bracha on the sukkah, we have to be mekadesh the yom. We have to be mekadesh sukkos, and it's because of the fact that it's sukkos that we have a chiyuv to eat in the sukkah. So first we make the Bari Pri Hagafen, then we make Kiddush. After Kiddush, now we can make the leishev, and then after the leishev, we make the shechiyanu, and we explained that the shechiyanu goes back on both the Kiddush, it goes back on the Chag. We're making a Shechiyanu on the Chag, and it also goes back on the Leishev, because the Shechiyanu goes on the building of the Sukkah, on the Kiyam HaMitzvah of Yeshivas HaSukkah. So the Shechiyanu has to bring up the rear, and it has to cover everything else. Now we're on Kuf Yud Amid Aleph, and we go to Sif Gimel, where the Mechaber says that's very nice on the 2 days of Yom Tov. B'sha'ar Yamim, but on the rest of Yom Tov, mevarech ala sukkah koidim berachos HaMoed. The Mechaber says that the rest of Yom Tov, when you come into your sukkah to eat, so you're coming into your sukkah with a tuna-fish sandwich, he says you make a leishev basukkah, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu leishev basukkah, and then you make the HaMoed on your sandwich. Now everybody's jumping up and down to say, well, that's not what we do. Well, the Mechaber himself says that. The Mechaber says, however, even though my preference in halacha, says the Mechaber, is we should make the leishev first, and we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah why. However, says the Mechaber, the noihagim, however, the minig is levarech al hasukkah achar berachos HaMoed. The minig is that we make the leishev after the HaMoed, kaidem sheyitayim, before we taste anything, before we eat. So again, the Mechaber says that really his preference would be you come into the sukkah with a sandwich, or you come into the sukkah with a piece of cake that's chayiv in the sukkah. You should come into the sukkah, you should make asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu leishev basukkah, then you should make the HaMoed, and then you should begin to eat. However, he says that's not the minig. The minig is that we make the HaMoed first, then we make the leishev basukkah, and then we begin to eat. Now let's see what's behind all of this. Let's go to the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Vav. Says the Chavetz Chaim, B'sha'ar Yamim, on the other days of Sukkos. Explains the Chavetz Chaim, recite loymar, what the Mechaber wants to tell us over here is, the b'Yom Tov, on Yom Tov itself, Halei mavur le'el b'Sif Aleph. We already explained in Sif Aleph that the proper order of the brachos is yayin, first the Bari Pri Hagafen, Kiddush, then Kiddush Hayayim, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim, v'Sukkah, and then Leishev Basukkah. Ube'arnu sham, and we explained over there in Sif Aleph, Tam Hadavar, the rationale for this order is, Di'i Eshel Levarech ala Sukkah, Kaidem Kiddush Hayayim. We explained over there that it would not be appropriate to make a bracha of asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu leishev basukkah before we make Kiddush and before we mekadesh the yom of Sukkos. If we're being mekadesh the yom, we're announcing, acknowledging, and being mekadesh the arrival of the Yom Tov of Sukkos. We have to do that before we can make the leishev, because we only are able to make the leishev because it's Sukkos. So the Mishnah Berurah already explained in Sif Aleph that on Yom Tov night, the reason the order for the berachos is that way is because it would be inappropriate to make the leishev before Kiddush, Ayin Sham. Just going to let the train pass by. Okay, however, the Mechaber says, B'sha'ar yamim she'ein b'hem kiddush. But on the rest of Yom Tov, when you don't have kiddush, you're not making kiddush. Today is HaMoed. I had a sandwich in my sukkah this morning. We didn't make kiddush. So I had to make a hamotzi and I had to make a leishev. What's the proper order then? Achein, however, b'sha'ar yamim she'ein b'hem kiddush, on the rest of the days of Yom Tov, when we don't have kiddush, das ha-mechaber, the opinion of the mechaber is that tzarich levarech ala sukkah, that we have to make the bracha of leishev basukah on the sukkah, koydem berachos hamotzi, before the bracha of hamotzi, kedas Rabbeinu Meir Merutenberg, in accordance with the opinion of the Ram Merutenberg. The ba nischayev tchila, because the Maram Merutenberg reasons, he says, I have two brachas in front of me. One bracha I have to make is the bracha of leishev basukah. The other bracha that I have to make is the bracha of hamotzi. Where am I when I'm making the bracha? I'm in the sukkah. So I am presently sitting in the sukkah, and I have my sandwich in front of me. The Maram Merutenberg reasons the bon nischayev tchila tekef sheniknas v'yashav ba recite seudah. He says that the chiyuv of the bracha of leishev basukah fell upon you. It came upon you before the chiyuv of hamotzi. You came into the sukkah, you sat down. The instant you walked into the sukkah, it was already incumbent upon you to make a bracha of leishev basukah. The bracha of hamotzi is not incumbent upon you until you sit down, pick up the sandwich, and are ready to eat. Then you have to make a bracha of hamotzi. So reasons to Maram Merutenberg, I don't understand. You came into the sukkah, you have two brachas in front of you, make the one that the chiyuv came upon you first, and that's the leishev, not the hamotzi. That's the train in the other direction. Let's wait a second. Okay, so the bon is chayiv tchila tekef shenichdas v'yashav ba recite seudah. As soon as you came and sat down in the sukkah, the bracha, it was incumbent upon you to make the bracha of leishev. So make that bracha first. V'roi lismach habracha lahayeshiva kol mad efsher. You should make that bracha of leishev basukah as close to the time that you sat down in the sukkah as possible. And the Mechaber likes very much this rationale of the Maram Merutenberg. And therefore the Mechaber states his opinion here in the beginning of Sivav. And he says clearly, his feeling is that on the rest of the days of Yom Tov, when you're not making Kiddush, the order of the brachas should be leishev basukah and then hamotzi. However, the Mechaber says that the Welt is not noyig that way. The Welt doesn't do it that way. They make the hamotzi first, and then they make the leishev. Now, why do we make the hamotzi first and then the leishev? So what's going to become apparent is that it's true, the Maram Merutenberg feels not that way. The Maram Merutenberg feels that we have to make the leishev as soon as possible after coming into the sukkah. And the truth is that the Maram Merutenberg argues on the Mechaber in Sif Aleph. In Sif Aleph, when the Mechaber gives us the order of the brachas by Kiddush, the Mechaber tells us Yayin, Kiddush, Sukkah, Zman. The Maram Merutenberg says no. The Maram Merutenberg says that we got to make the leishev first. So the Maram Merutenberg argues on the Mechaber when there's Kiddush also. The Mechaber himself doesn't go with the Maram Merutenberg when there's Kiddush. He says we can't make a leishev before Kiddush Hayom. So over there, the Mechaber says Yayin, Kiddush, and then leishev. The Maram Merutenberg always puts the leishev first. So the Mechaber says that on the rest of the days of Yom Tov, his preference would be make the leishev first. We're not noyig that way. Apparently, and it's going to come across from the Mishnah Berurah shortly, the reason we're not noyig that way is because our feeling is that the ikar of the leishev basukah, the ikar way that we're mekayim, the mitzvah of yeshivas hasukah, is the achila in the sukkah. It's not really with the coming into the sukkah and sitting down in the sukkah. It's the achila in the sukkah. And therefore we make the hamotzi, which is the beginning of the seudah. That's the beginning of our seudah, is the bracha of hamotzi. Now that we're being mekayim, the mitzvah of yeshiva sukkah, properly, now we make a leishev basukah. Not when we walked in and sat down. Okay. Ois Cotton Zion, where the Mishnah Berurah is basically going to say this. Ois Cotton Zion, the Mechaber said, the Welt Ferzach, Achar Berachos HaMoed, that we make the bracha of Leisha Basukah after the HaMoed. Explains the Chavetz Chaim why. Kedei sheyaschil b'seudah, because we want to actually start the seudah. The al yada hu ikar chiyuv asukah, because it's with the seudah. That's the ikar chiyuv of sukkah. Let's remember, we learned earlier that our minig is we make a bracha. Where do we make the bracha on the sukkah? If you go back to Kuvav Amid Aleph, Siman Taf Reish Lamed Tes, Sif Cotton Ches, the Mechaber said, Nagu she'ein mevarchim ala sukkah ela b'shas achila. The minig is that we make a bracha on the sukkah b'shas achila. So that's the ikar is achila. So we don't make the leishev until after the HaMoed, because the HaMoed is the beginning of the seudah. Now the Chavetz Chaim continues and he says, lest you worry that the leishev is going to create a hefsek between the HaMoed and the beginning of the eating, says the Chavetz Chaim, no. V'lo have a hefsek bein berachos HaMoed la'achila. The recitation of the bracha of leishev basukah does not constitute a hefsek. The tzarich seudah k'may kiddush, because it's a tzarich haseudah. You need to make the leishev in order to be able to eat the seudah. So it's a tzarich achila. The same as by kiddush, we make a bari pri hagafen, but then we make kiddush before we drink the wine, and the bracha of kiddush is not a hefsek between the hagafen and the drinking of the wine, because we can't drink the wine until we make kiddush. So it's not a hefsek. Okay, so that's the Mechaber. So we have over here the Mechaber. The Mechaber told us in Sif Aleph. In Sif Aleph he said we make hagafen and then a kiddush and then leishev. The reason why the leishev comes after kiddush is because it's inappropriate to make leishev basukah before we're mekadesh sukkos, and that's why that's the order by kiddush: yayin, kiddush, leishev, zman. The rest of Yom Tov, where we don't have kiddush, so the Mechaber said his preference would be leishev and then HaMoed. Leishev first, because that's the bracha that became incumbent upon us first, then the HaMoed. The Welt Ferzach, that we make the HaMoed first and then the leishev, because the bracha of HaMoed marks the beginning of the seudah, and it's with the seudah, that's the ikar kiyum of the mitzvah of Yeshivas HaSukkah. Therefore we make the HaMoed and then we make the leishev. Now comes the Ramah, 2 lines from the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch, near the end of the line. Says the Ramah, Haga, Hachi noyagin b'chol. This is taka the way we're noyag during the week on Chol HaMoed. We're noyag that we make a HaMoed and then a leishev, a mezainis and then a leishev. Aval, however, b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov sheyesh behem kiddush, on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Forget just the first 2 nights of Sukkos. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, whenever we're making Kiddush, mevarech la'achar Kiddush, we make the leishev after Kiddush. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Kotneches, Aval b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Pirish, what's the Ramah coming to say? Sha'az mekadesh al hayayin, whenever we're making Kiddush al hayayin, va'omer al hakois sukkah uzman k'dela'el, and we're going to make a bracha of sukkah, and we're going to make a bracha of shechiyanu, va'achakach HaMoed ala pas, and then only afterwards, after we wash, are we going to go make HaMoed on the pas, but we're going to make the leishev earlier, we're going to make the leishev after kiddush. Mekadesh ala pas, if we're making kiddush ala pas, you're allowed to make kiddush on challah. Omer HaMoed, you would make the HaMoed, the kiddush and then kiddush, the sukkah and then leishev, uzman and then the shechiyanu. Ma she'ein kein b'chol she'ein sham ala HaMoed, mevarach ala sukkah takef achar berachos HaMoed. Really, this Ramah, what's the Ramah coming to say over here? I think the only point of the Ramah over here, he says it's a little bit incongruous. The Ramah, I think, is pointing out over here. He says because we just established that our minig is to make the leishev after the HaMoed. So really, by kiddush, you would have thought that we should make the leishev after the hagafen, right? Why are we making the leishev after the HaMoed? We explained that we make the leishev right after the HaMoed because the HaMoed is what demarcates the beginning of the seudah. It's with the HaMoed that we begin the seudah. Now that we began the seudah, we can make the leishev. So I think what the Ramah is coming to say over here is that you would think whenever there's Kiddush, maybe what we should do is we should make the Bari Priyagofen, and right after the Bari Priyagofen, we should make the leishev. And yet that's not what we do. We make the Bari Priyagofen, and then we make Kiddush, and then we make the leishev. And that's what the Mishnah Berurah means over here. He says whenever we're mekadesh ala yayin, so we make the bracha on the kais, and we make Kiddush, and then we make the bracha of the leishev. Now, the rationale for this, you would be very tempted to say that, well, yeah, Rabbi Weiss, the rationale for this is very obvious. The rationale is, again, what we learned at the very beginning of Siman Taf Reish Mem Gimel. The rationale is exactly what we said, that it's inappropriate to make the leishev before Kiddush. So you're asking me, why is it that during the week we make the HaMoed and we immediately follow up the HaMoed with the leishev? Because the HaMoed marks the beginning of the seudah, and we make the leishev right after the beginning of the seudah. So how come by Kiddush we don't do the same thing? We should make the Hagafen, which is the beginning of the seudah, and then make the leishev, right? The answer is because we said it's inappropriate to make the leishev before Kiddush. First, we have to be mekadesh the yom, then we can make the leishev. So on that, from that perspective, it would seem that this Ramah is really kind of repetitive. We know this already. Why is the Ramah pointing this out to me over here? We kind of already covered that. But if you take a look in Sharitzia and Ois Katan Yod Aleph, that's where the answer is. The Sharitzia says over here, Ube'emes lav dafka b'Shabbos shechal b'tchila Sukkos. The Ramah's point is that this does not only apply to the Kiddush that we make on Yom Tov night, the first 2 nights of Yom Tov. V'hu adin b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov shebasayf hachag. The same thing is true. We just had Shabbos HaMoed. On Shabbos HaMoed also, we make the Hagafen, and then we make Kiddush, and then we make the leishev. Now, does the rationale that we learned at the beginning of Taf Reish Mem Gimel apply to Shabbos HaMoed? No, it doesn't. Over there's no problem that it's inappropriate to make the leishev before Kiddush. On the first 2 nights of Sukkos, it's inappropriate to make the leishev before Kiddush, because in that Kiddush, we're mekadesh the yom of Sukkos, where we acknowledge and we're mekadesh the arrival of Sukkos. It's inappropriate to make a leishev basukah before we do that. I just lost my light, but I think everything else is working properly. Yes, it would seem so. Excuse me, pardon me just 1 second here. Okay, sorry about that. What's happening over here? Everything was clear a half a second ago, and now suddenly everything goes awry. Okay, that seems to be good again. Okay. So it applies in the beginning of Yom Tov when we have this issue that it's inappropriate to make the leishev before Kiddush. But how does that apply, let's say, to Shabbos HaMoed? Shabbos HaMoed, you're making Kiddush on Shabbos. You're not being Mekadesh Sukkos. So why is it inappropriate to make the leishev? Why don't we make a Bar Priyagofen, and then the leishev, and then Kiddush? And yet, what the Ramah is telling me is that no, on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, whenever you make Kiddush, you make the leishev, you postpone the leishev until after Kiddush. So again, if we follow the logic that the Mechaber gave us, the Mechaber said his preference would be always to make the leishev before, let's say, the HaMoed. But the Weltfritzach, that we make the leishev after the HaMoed, because the HaMoed marks the beginning of the seudah. In that case, whenever we make Kiddush, really the leishev should come right after the Hagafen. So we saw one very clear reason. We can't do that in the beginning of Yom Tov by Kiddush because it's inappropriate to make the leishev before we mekadesh the Yom of Sukkos. But how about, let's say, on Shabbos HaMoed? On Shabbos HaMoed, there doesn't seem to be any reason why it would be inappropriate to make the leishev right after the Hagafen. So why don't we make the leishev right after the Hagafen? And in this Sharitzia and Ois Katan Yod Aleph, what the Chavetz Chaim is telling me is that This Ramah, Hachi Noyagin B'chayil Aval B'Shabbos V'Yom Tov Sheyesh B'Hem Kiddush B'Varach L'Achar Kiddush. That's what the Ramah is telling me. The Ramah is telling me that whenever we have Kiddush, we always postpone the Leishev until after Kiddush. And we have to understand what the rationale for that is. And in order to understand that, we have to go now to Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Tes. Mevarich L'Achar Kiddush explains the Chavetz Chaim, the Oz Hu Zman Haschalas HaSeudah, because normally we make the leishev right after the HaMoed, because the HaMoed marks the beginning of the seudah. I made HaMoed, now I could start to eat my tuna sandwich. So now I make a leishev basukkah. But is that true when you have Kiddush? When you have Kiddush, you make a Bari Priagafen. Let's say Friday night, Shabbos HaMoed. You start Kiddush, right? Bari Priagafen, right? Now you go ahead and you're saying the rest of Kiddush. Are you allowed to eat now? You're not allowed to eat, because you're not allowed to eat until after you make Kiddush. So Kiddush marks the beginning of the seudah, not the Bari Priagafen. So, Mevarach L'Achar Kiddush, you want to know why we always postpone the Leishev until after Kiddush? The Ozu Zman Haschalas HaSeudah. Because it's only with the bracha of Kiddush, not with the bracha of Hagafen, that the seudah starts. The seudah begins with the bracha of Kiddush. To be kaidem ein rashay lechol. Because let's remember, you're not allowed to eat before you make Kiddush. V'shayich oz levarich berachos haSukkah. So it's only after you complete making Kiddush that you could actually go ahead and start the seudah. So that's when you make the bracha of the leishev. Now, says the Chavetz Chaim, we've covered, with all of the different logics that we've had here, we've covered Kiddush the first 2 nights of Sukkos. We've covered Shabbos Kiddush. How about the daytime when you have Kiddush? Uleinian seudah Shabbos v'Yom Tov Shachris. When it comes to the daytime Kiddush, she'ein behem Kiddush, where we really don't have Kiddush, rak bracha ba'alma al hakois. The Kiddush that we have by day, first of all, is not daraisa. The Kiddush, the nighttime Kiddush is midaraisa. The daytime Kiddush is midrabanan. And that's why if you look in the bencher, it's called Kiddusha Rabbah. The reason it's called Kiddusha Rabbah is because it's only a drabanan. So to give it greater prestige and to make sure that people don't treat it, with kalus, they called it Kiddusha Rabbah, the great Kiddush. Now, that Kiddush, essentially, in order to be Yoitze Kiddush by day, all you need to do is pick up a kais and make a Bari Priagafen. You don't have to say Kisheshes. You don't have to say Elamai Mayade Hashem Mikrai Kodesh. You don't have to say Vishamru. You don't have to say Im Toshiv. All you have to do is pick up a kais and say Bari Priagafen. Indeed, there are people who have the minig that when they make Kiddush by day, they, in essence, do that. What they do is they'll be putting the wine on the table, be setting up the plate with the cake. While they're doing it, they're saying Zakais Yom Shabbos Lekachay Shishis Yom Tavin V'Siz Kamalach Techa V'Yom Shvi Shabbos Lo Shabbos Lekach L'Isaz Kamalach Atav V'Chavi Techa V'Chavi Techa V'Shamrum Neis Rosh Shabbos. Then finally, when they're up to the Bari Priagafen, they pick up the kais Savri Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Bari Priagafen. The essence of the Kiddush is only the Hagafen. And that's why the Mishnah Berurah says over here, by the daytime Kiddush, she'ein behem Kiddush, where you don't have a bracha of Kiddush, rak bracha ba'alma ala kais, you only have a Bari Priagafen on the kais. What should you do now? Now you'll ask me, what do you mean, what should you do now? So you make a Bari Priagafen, and then you make a leishev. What's the Chavetz Chaim's question? So the Chavetz Chaim explains what his question is. Yesh deos bein ha'achronim. Over here we actually have a difference of opinion amongst the achronim. Yesh oimrim. There are those that say, and he brings this down from Dvar Shmuel, and you can actually see it in the Shari Tshuva in Dibra Maschal Avol B'Shabbos V'Yom Tov. It's an interesting Shari Tshuva if you want to take a look at it. Yesh oimrim. There are those that say de bazeh ein kedai lahafsik beberachas sukkah ben abracha l'shtia. We said the reason you could make a HaMoed and then make a leishev basukkah, and the leishev basukkah is not a hefsik between the HaMoed and the beginning of the eating, is because the HaMoed is tzarchei seudah. I'm sorry, the leishev basukkah is tzarchei seudah, because you're not allowed to eat until you make the leishev basukkah. So it's not a hefsik. But is that true by Kiddush during the day? You make a hagafen, and now you're going to eat a piece of cake. He says, well, I'm sorry, you make a hagafen. What's the matter with me? You made a hagafen, and now you're going to drink a cup of wine. Are you allowed to drink the cup of wine before you make a leishev? A cup of wine is not chayiv in sukkah, right? We said, we had a whole lengthy Mishnah Berurah, whether kvios alayayin is considered a kvios. We said, really, kvios alayayin is really not considered a kvios. Really, drinking just a cup of wine is not chayiv in sukkah. So you're going to make a hagafen, and then you're going to make a leishev, and then you're going to drink the wine? But the leishev is not really tzarchei seudah, because you're allowed to drink the wine without the leishev. Therefore, the Dvar Shmuel says, "De bazeh ain't kedai lahafsik berachos sukkah ben habracha l'shtiyah." You really can't be mafsik between the hagafen and the drinking of the wine by making a leishev. Da l'shtiyah like a chiyuv sukkah klal, because you don't have a chiyuv sukkah on drinking that cup of wine. Ella, rather, the Dvar Shmuel says, "Yevarech isa achar berachos HaMoed limin hagedu." The Dvar Shmuel says, really, if you're going to make kiddush by day, and then drink the wine, and then you're going to go wash, and then you're going to go make HaMoed, and then you're going to eat pas, he says, make the leishev after the HaMoed. Don't make a leishev by kiddush. What are you making a leishev on? You're making a leishev on a cup of wine? And you're being mafsik between the hagafen and the drinking? It's a shvacha leishev. The wine that you're drinking is not even chayiv in sukkah. So the Dvar Shmuel says, better would be make the hagafen, drink the wine, and you'll make a leishev after the HaMoed. V'yesh omrim, and others say, and he brings down a bit the levush, the shari knesses agdola, the gambazeh, that even in this case, kevan shemechin atzmai b'kiddush zeh la'achila, what's the point of the kiddush? The kiddush is the beginning of the seudah. We all know, you come home, you come into the sukkah, what's the first thing that you have to do before you can start the seudah? You have to make kiddush. And really, the kiddush is the beginning of the seudah. You prepare your whole seudah, you go inside, you say, okay, everybody, let's go, seudah time. You come in, you make kiddush. So the kiddush does demarcate the beginning of the seudah. So v'yesh omrim de gam bazeh, kevan shemechin atzmai b'kiddush zeh la'achila, since the bottom line is that this kiddush does mark the beginning of the seudah, yevarech isa kaidem sheyitay min hakos. You're able to make the leishev before you taste any wine, and it does not constitute a hefsek. Because again, it's appropriate to make the leishev then, because that is the beginning of the seudah, and you are sitting in the sukkah. And it's not a hefsek. It also is considered mitzarchei hasudah. And the Mishnah Berurah says, Udavid kemar ovid, you could choose to follow either one of these opinions. Now says the Mishnah Berurah, this discussion is germane to a case when what you're doing is you got the seudah ready, you're going to make kiddush, you're going to drink the wine, and then you're going to go right away and you're going to go wash, and you're going to start the seudah, you're going to have pas. So in that case, it makes sense that the kiddush marks the beginning of the seudah. You'll make the leishev by the kiddush. You'll go, you'll wash, you'll eat pas, you'll start the seudah. But let's say you're coming home, you're making kiddush, and you're not starting the seudah yet. You came home, you davened by an early minyan. You're home, it's 10:15 in the morning. You're going to go now, and you're going to make kiddush, and you're going to eat some cake, and you invited guests, and you told guests the seudah is going to be at 12 o'clock. So you're not even eating your seudah now. So you're just going to make a bari pri hagafen on a kais for kiddush, and then you're going to eat some cake. And you're eating the cake in order to be mekayim kiddush for makom seudah. Mitzaded b'shari tshuva, then the shari tshuva writes, that then you should certainly make the leishev right after the hagafen before you drink, ayin sham. Now, if you take a look at the shari tshuva, what the shari tshuva says is like this. His rationale, his reasoning is as follows. The whole question over here, the whole reason that Dvar Shmuel is mefakvek, the reason he has a problem with making the leishev sukkah after the hagafen, is because, again, he says, you made a hagafen. Now you're going to drink wine, and drinking wine is not chayiv in sukkah. How could you be mafsik with making a leishev basukah on something that's not even truly chayiv in sukkah? So he says, don't make the leishev now. Make the leishev after you make HaMoed at the beginning of the seudah. But in our case now, you're not making a HaMoed soon and starting the seudah. You're not having the seudah for another hour. What are you doing now? You're making kiddush and you're having pasa b'kistin. In that case, the Shari Tshuva says over there you could certainly make the leishev basukah right after the hagafen, and it just slipped my mind why. Let me remind myself 1 second. Oh, right. Because if you remember, we said that there's a whole shaila whether or not pasa b'kistin is even chayiv in sukkah. But we said when you eat pasa b'kistin because of kiddush, because you made kiddush and you need kiddush b'makom seudah, so now you're eating pasa b'kistin in order to be mekayim kiddush b'makom seudah. That elevates the pasa b'kistin, and now the pasa b'kistin is certainly chayiv in sukkah. So the Shari Tshuva reasons like this. He says, if you're making kiddush now, and all you're going to have now is pasa b'kisnin, but the pasa b'kisnin is now elevated to kiddush b'makom seudah, now this kiddush has a greater chashivas. If you're making kiddush, and after kiddush you're going to wash, so then the ikar seudah is what comes next. So then don't make the leishev after the hagafen. Make the hagafen, drink the wine, make the leishev by the ikar seudah that's coming in 2 minutes. You're now going straight to wash, and you're going to make HaMoed. Make the leishev after the HaMoed. But if you're not doing that now, if all you're doing now is making kiddush and having pasa b'kisnin, then you should certainly make the leishev right after the hagafen on the kiddush, because this is its own standalone seudah. And it's all coming because of the kiddush. Why are you eating the pasa b'kistin? Because of the kiddush. So it elevates the kiddush, and then you could certainly make the leishev after the kiddush. Okay. Wow. What a siman this has been. What a beautiful siman. And it's so beautiful that we're learning this, and I'm teaching it while we're actually in the sukkah. So we just have to finish off the final few words of Siman Taf Reish Mem Gimel. If you go back to Kuf Yud Amid Aleph, the last 3 words of the Ramah on the page. Ve'im kiddush babayis va'oichel b'sukkah oy ipcha. If you're going to make kiddush inside the house, technically speaking, you could make kiddush inside the house because the yayin might not be chayiv in sukkah. V'oichel b'sukkah, then you're eating in the sukkah. Oy ipcha, or the reverse. Ayin la'el siman reish ayin gimel sif beis. Okay, now we move on to Siman Taf Reish Mem Dalet. Siman Taf Reish Mem Dalet, Seder Hallel Kol Yemei Achag, the proper way to recite Hallel all of the days of Yom Tov, Ubay Beis Seifim, and here we have 2 Seifim. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph, Shacharis Acha Chazaras HaTfilah, by when you daven Shacharis right after Chazaras HaShatz, Noitlin HaLulav, you take the Daled Minim, you take the Lulav and the Esrig, Umevarchin al netilas lulav, and you make a bracha of Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al netilas lulav v'shechayanu, and on the first day of Yom Tov you make a shechayanu. V'goimrim ha'Hallel, and you say the complete Hallel together with Loilanu and Ahavti. V'chein kol shmeinas yimei achag, and for the entire 8 days of Sukkos, you're goimer as a Hallel. For the entire 8 days of Sukkos, you say the complete Hallel with Loilanu and Ahavti, in contrast to Sukkos, to Pesach, On Pesach, you only say the complete Hallel on the first 2 days. The rest of Pesach, you do not say the complete Hallel, but on Sukkos, you say the complete Hallel all of the days of Sukkos. The reason for that is, if you pay attention to the Kriyas HaTorah, all of the days of Sukkos, you'll see that the karbanos of the Musaf are different on every single day. We have the Parei Hachag, the parim, the cows that we bring as karbanos on the days of Yom Tov, they start off at 13, and we subtract 1 every day. On the first day, it's 13, then 12, then 11, then 10, then 9, then 8. So the karbanos are different every day. Since the karbanos are different every day has the status of being a separate day of Yom Tov, and it gets the recitation of a complete Hallel. Masha'eked by Pesach, the karbanos stay the same, so we don't have a full Hallel on every day. Continues the Mechaber right by the Ois Kat Nehei for the Mishnah Berurah. Umevarchim ligmar es ha'Hallel. This was the shita of the Mechaber that we've seen previously in Siman Tov Peches. The Mechaber holds that whenever you say the full Hallel, you make a different bracha. You don't say likra es ha'Hallel, you say ligmar es ha'Hallel, to complete the Hallel. Bein tzibur, bein yachid, and you make that bracha whether the Hallel is being recited b'tzibur or whether it's being recited by a yachid. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Aleph. Shachris, Betur Isa de Mashkimin. In the Torah it says that we should get up early to daven during the days of Sukkos. V'hu mishum dizrizin makdimin lemitzvah l'kayim mitzvahs lulav. This would be an inyan of zrizus. Zrizin makdimin lemitzvahs. Avram Avinu got up early to go to the Akedah. We know that we have a mitzvah incumbent upon us. We have lulav and esrog waiting for us. We should get up early to go ahead and take the lulav and esrog early in the day. Hatfila, the Mechaber said that we take the lulav right after Chazaras Hashatz. So here the Chavetz Chaim points out a peripheral halacha. I don't think it's the get to too many people nowadays. Commonly, most kehillas, I think, do not recite the yotzreis in the tefillas. But the Mishnah Berurah says here, Ein oimrim kel na b'yom rishon de Sukkos. There was a piyut in the yotzreis kel na, and he says we don't say it on the first day of Sukkos. Ki oimer b'minkaimai oz haisa chanoyas sukai. Because instead we say the piyut of oz haisa chanoyas sukai, which discusses Sukkos. So we replace the piyut of kel na, which is only a piyut of Shevach Vaidah to the Rabbeinu Shalom, but it's not specific to Sukkos. On the first day of Sukkos, we replace it with this piyut of oz haisa chanoyas sukai. Shu gam kein shir v'shevach k'may kel na. B'makom shemahapchin haseder k'shachal b'Shabbos yom rishon. In many places they had the minig that if the first day of Sukkos, the first day of Yom Tov, fell out on a Shabbos, they would switch the yotzres. The yotzres that would normally be said on the first day would be said on the second day. So in a place where they have that minig, oz roi loymar kel na b'yom rishon v'lo b'yom sheni. Then you could say kel na on Yom Rishon and not on Yom Sheni. They don't understand why it is that we don't say kelna on the first day. They think it's that somehow kelna is inappropriate to the first day. Chavetz Chaim explains that no, it's not that kelna is inappropriate. It's that the piyut of oz haisa chanayas sukai is more appropriate to say on the first day. But if the first day is Shabbos, then we flip it to the second day because we want to speak about the Daled Minim. Then we can say Kelna on the first day. Ois Katan Gimel al Netilas Lulav v'Shechiyanu. V'achakach Yinaneya. Right after you make the bracha of al Netilas Lulav and the Shechiyanu, you make the Nanuim with the Daled Minim. V'chein mashba Siman Tov Reish Nun Aleph Sif Hey. V'hinei Shechiyanu zehu al kiyam ha-mitzvah. Why are we making the Shechiyanu? When we take the Daled Minim, we're making a Shechiyanu, we're thanking the Rabbeinu Shalom for allowing us to reach this time when we're zoichet to be mekayim the mitzvah of Daled Minim. Valkein, after Esma Balayla Berach Shechiyanu. And that's why, even though we made a Shechiyanu at night, when we made Kiddush in the Sukkah, Sham Haya al Mitzvah Sukkah Va'al Yom Tov. That Shechiyanu was on Yom Tov, and it was on the Mitzvah of Sukkah, and maybe on the building of the Sukkah. But that Shechiyanu was not made on the Mitzvah of Daled Minim. Vezehu al Mitzvahs Lulav. The Shechiyanu that we make now, after we make the bracha on the Daled Minim, that's the Shechiyanu on the Mitzvah of the Daled Minim. Let's say somebody took Daled Minim on the first day and he forgot to make a Shechiyanu. Yachal levarich kol shiva emas sheyizkar. He could make the bracha of Shechiyanu any day that he remembers. Ubishas netila dafka. However, he has to be holding the Daled Minim when he makes the Shechiyanu on the Daled Minim. V'embirach b'yom rishon. And if you do make the bracha of al netilas lulav on the first day, shuv ein mevarech b'yom sheni Shechiyanu. You do not make another bracha of Shechiyanu on the second day. Now, many of you are thinking, well, yeah, I mean, why should we make a Shechiyanu on the second day? We made the Shechiyanu on the first day. Well, let's take a look at the Sharitzia, nice cut and vav. Da'af pi sheyom rishon haya chol. Because the logic is like this. You might think that I should make a Shechiyanu. We make a Shechiyanu by Kiddush the first night, and we make a Shechiyanu by Kiddush on the second night. Why? Because the whole reason we have 2 days of Yom Tiv is minagavi saying sveika diyoma, that there was a time when we didn't know for sure which day was Yom Tiv. So the second night, maybe yesterday was Chol. Maybe tonight is the real Yom Tov. So now we have to make a Shechiyanu on the Yom Tov. We couldn't make a Shechiyanu on the Yom Tov last night because maybe it wasn't really Yom Tov. Maybe that Shechiyanu doesn't count. So the Afal Pishay Rishon Chol. Maybe you should have the same question now when it comes to lulav. I made a Shechiyanu yesterday on the Daled Minim, but maybe yesterday was Chol, and maybe today is really Yom Tov. So I have to make a Shechiyanu today. Says the Chavetz Chaim, no, because even if yesterday was Chol, Havalei K'Moshe Birich B'Shas Asiyah, the Yotza. So that would be akin to somebody who made a Shechiyanu when he was preparing his lulav. Let's say it's Erev Yom Tov, and you have your lulav, and you made your rings, and now you're tying together your lulav, your hadassim, and your haravas. You can make a Shechiyanu then, even though it's not even Sukkos yet. If you make a Shechiyanu then you don't make a Shechiyanu the first time that you take the lulav and esrog. So, you're right. Let's say the first day of Yom Tov wasn't really Yom Tov, but you took your lulav and esrog and you made a Shechiyanu. So, it's at least as good as making a Shechiyanu b'shas asiyah, and you're yotzeh, now you don't have to make another Shechiyanu. Okay. There is an interesting discussion as to why we make a Shechiyanu on both days of Rosh Hashanah when we blow shofar. Why do we make a Shechiyanu on both days? Okay. Ice cotton dalid v'chein kol shmeinis yimei achag. You complete the Hallel all 8 days of the Yom Tov. V'lo yehevik Chol HaMoed Pesach. We don't treat Chol HaMoed Sukkos the way we do Chol HaMoed Pesach. The Medalgin, Chol HaMoed Pesach, we do not say the complete Hallel. Chol HaMoed Sukkos we do. Mishum the Sukkos kol Yom Chashuv Yom Tov b'fnei atzmai. As I explained, every day of Sukkos is considered a Yom Tov b'fnei atzmai. Kevet shechol karbonosav yom shalafanav, because the karbonos are different each day. Ice cut and hay. The Mechaber said in Mavarch and Ligmar, the bracha that we make on Hallel is Ligmar es a Hallel. Ayl el simin tov pei chesef alaf b'hagasham. The Medina say no aminig levarach likrais hahalel. Our minig is to say likrais hahalel. Vayin mi Mishnah Berurah sham. Over there, it's explained that the reason we make the bracha likrais es hahalel and not ligmar es hahalel is because, let's say somebody made the bracha ligmar es hahalel, and then he's saying Hallel, and unfortunately he's not paying such good attention, and he skips a word. Well, then it's a bracha levatala. He didn't complete the Hallel. It's not true. He skipped the word. So we make the bracha likrais a Hallel. Likrais is a Hallel, not ligmar is a Hallel. I've got vav bein tzibur bein yachid recite loymar. What the Mechaber wants to say over here is v'lo yehavikim a Rosh Chodesh v'Chol HaMoed Pesach. That the din of Sukkos is not like the din of Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed Pesach. The lakama paiskim, according to many paiskim, ein mevarich oz al hahalel afilu l'tzibur. There are paiskim that hold that on Rosh Chodesh and on Chol HaMoed Pesach, even when you say Hallel b'tzibur, you don't make a bracha. Ubeprat l'yachid, and certainly a yachid, somebody who's saying Hallel b'yachidus, wouldn't make a bracha according to many paiskim. The Sham Hallel who rak minig shakol Yisrael, because the truth is, when we recite Hallel on Rosh Chodesh and on Chol HaMoed Pesach, that is not a chiyuv; it's really a minig. Avo bazed the medinahu, but Chol HaMoed Sukkos is an ikar adin mevarch lekulei alma bein l'tzibur bein l'yachid. You make a bracha certainly whether it's b'tzibur or whether it's b'yachidus. All right, it looks like we're going to have to stop over here. So Mir Hashem will pick up tomorrow with Mishnah Berurah is cut in Zion. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The Sukkos of limud HaTorah should be Megan against Klal Yisrael. The Sukkos of the Sukkah should be Megan. It should protect against Klal Yisrael. Betzila de Memenusa. We're learning Torah Mamish in the Sukkah. I don't know if you're learning it in the Sukkah, but I'm giving the shir in the Sukkah. Betzila de Memenusa. What a pleasure. The Sukkos of the Sukkah, the Sukkos of Torah, should be Megan on Gans Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring Yeshua's Refuas Parnaset Shidduchim to all in need. And the Rebbeinu Shalom should bring us to Bias Gal Tzedek B'Meir V'Yameinu. We should be Zeichen to be Oila L'Regel on Yom Tov. I mean, Mekayim the mitzvah is darf zu sein, b'shleimusai. We shouldn't have to say, Mepnei chateinu galinu me'artzeinu, v'nisrachaknu me'al ad moseinu. Be well.